Hello.
Hi.
Welcome to another episode of Our Years. I'm Dreama.
This is Barry.
So the other day I was on a date.
Obviously, you guys already know.
as one does. This date was with an American Indian man. And he asked me, when we were talking about growing up in India and he grew up here and we were talking about what that's like. Mm-hmm. And he asked me how I identify. And I was so taken aback by the question because I've never really thought about it. Mm-hmm. And he really wanted a response.
So you were just sitting there.
Yeah, so I was basically. And I was like, what do I say? But honestly, how I feel is that I'm just someone who was born and raised in Indian, who is Indian and now lives in America. That's just how I identify. I don't feel like I'm struggling with the duality of it. I mean, obviously, I'm away from like the place I grew up and my friends and family. So that's the struggle. But I don't think I have an identity crisis. Mm-hmm. But I know you've moved around a lot, right? You grew up in South Africa, born and raised in South Africa, and then you moved to Taiwan, and then you moved here. Yeah. So I'm sure you've had more like a conversation with yourself about how you identify and how you portray yourself.
Yeah, I think this was actually a essay topic that we had to do in high school, where it was like about belonging and about like what we identify as. And I think like that's when it really got me thinking about like what I identify as, because having born and raised in South Africa, I in my mind is like I'm South African, right? But then having that like almost like dichotomy of like being born in South Africa, but you know my parents being Taiwanese and then raising us in the Taiwanese way, I think I struggle a little bit to really feel like I belonged completely to the South African community, especially when I moved to Taiwan. Because like moving to Taiwan, I was like, oh, okay, you know, like I'm Taiwanese, I should be okay in Taiwan. And then when I moved there, I felt like very out of place. I felt like I didn't understand the culture the way I thought I did, based on what my parents have taught me. Yeah. And there was just so many nuances to what it means to be Taiwanese. And so that put me even more in the what you call like the self-identity crisis, where I didn't really know what I was. And I didn't feel like I belonged to the South African community, and neither did I feel like I belonged to the Taiwanese community. And so I think like throughout my life, and now that I've spoken to a lot of people like me who, you know, are a different culture, especially in the States, right? There's so many people of color that were born and raised here. I've spoken to a lot of people and they feel the same way, where they don't quite feel like they belong here, but they also have not been raised in wherever they're from. And so it was hard for them. Yeah, I think like even to this day, I still don't have like a good answer to say what I am. So if someone were to ask me that on a date, I don't know what I would answer. I would probably say that I am a little bit of both. However, I think I will say that I'm more South African than I am Taiwanese. Mm-hmm. I'm more westernized than I am Taiwanese. And I think it's just a result of me having been born and lived in South Africa for so long, compared to my 7 years out of 27 years of living in Taiwan.
Yeah. When you said when you moved to Taiwan, you felt you were not Taiwanese enough. Do you remember those moments of what it was that made you feel like that?
I feel like because I looked Taiwanese, there were just so many expectations, and I spoke fluent Mandarin, right? Yeah. So there were so many expectations of me understanding culture appropriate things to say and not say. And because Taiwan is, I would say, quite conservative in relation to like the rest of the world, I think there were certain things that I was open with talking about that wasn't okay talking about in Taiwan, or like things that I did. For example, I think there's a huge difference between men and women, in the sense that women are supposed to do things a certain way, or women and men aren't supposed to be close friends because, you know, if you are, then it means something. Yeah, just things like that. And when I first moved back, I was like very friendly with everyone, right? Men, women, the sorts. And I would be very close, where like, you know, I would like pat their back, like, you know, if they made a funny joke, I would like do a little punch, like just as I would with my like girlfriends, right? And they were just like, oh, Barry and this guy, you know, people would start talking, essentially. And and it made me just like realize that, you know, being in that culture, I need to behave
a certain way
so that they don't get the wrong idea.
Yeah. So you had to consciously be someone else so that you would fit in more.
Yeah, I think so. Have you ever felt that, where you had to be conscious about your behaviors because you were in a new environment or a new culture, especially when you moved to the States?
Yeah, I definitely feel like I'm different with different groups when I moved in the US.
Yeah. You should see Rima's accent. You think this is her accent? No, no.
Apparently,
Put her in her Indian group of friends. Sometimes they'll just bring me along, okay? And it's just like an Indian community gathering, and I'm just there.
It's so funny. I have photos of this holiday we took in Tahoe, and it's just like Indians and little Barry. And I'm like, if people look at us, they think we've just abducted this Taiwanese girl. It's so funny.
It is quite funny. It is quite funny.
But
But with them, you don't. And I think it's because they're also quite westernized.
So with the Indians, it's different. With Western Indians, it's different. Yeah. With American Indians, it's different. Yeah. I didn't realize this. Until you mentioned it, I didn't realize I was code switching.
Yeah.
I think consciously I make certain kind of like jokes with certain kind of people, and even the way I think I treat people is different. Like I feel like my friends that grew up in India, like I have my college roommate here who's stays close to us, and with her I feel like it's like no filter. But I think I don't know how much of it is that I've known her for so long, as opposed to I can't do that with other Indians that I've met here. They'll like definitely ostracize me if I give them my unfiltered thoughts. But I definitely code switch. Like I think there's certain things it's okay to say in certain places and certain not. But I don't know how much of that is tied to my identity. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I think to some extent, maybe like that's where you feel like you belong, and so you show
a certain side of me.
Exactly. And then to some other people, maybe you show 80% of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you conceal maybe 20%.
Yeah.
Until you feel like it's safe to show that 20%, additional 20%.
Yeah. I feel like to your point about whether I feel safe saying it, I think it's just like, there are certain kinds of people I can just have certain conversations with and not. One of my colleagues makes a joke. She's American, and she's like, anytime we get on a one-on-one phone call or like a meeting, she's like, I always wonder if I'll get America Rima or India Rima. And I was like, what's the difference? And she's like, there's a difference. And I was like, I can't tell. Maybe the mannerisms. She's like, Indian Rima is very like she gesticulates a lot, and she's like very expressive, and American Rima is more like muted.
Yeah. I can see that. I can see that. When Rima is with like her friends that are from India originally, like the way you talk and the accent, her vibe. So you know why, like you asked the question why, WHY, Rima always says why, and I don't know why she can't tell the difference between a W and a V.
I can't hear the difference.
I don't know what it is, but so like her like accents are even more prominent when she's with her like Indian friends. And I think like the jokes you make, like you said, the jokes you make, and I guess your mannerisms are a lot different with them. And I think maybe it's like a subconscious, they will get it.
Yeah.
You know, whereas if you're talking to me, or like if you're talking to your American friends, maybe you feel like we won't get it, and so you don't say it. But now that you've taught me a lot of these mannerisms, I think I get it. I do the whole yeah.
I really want Barry to end up with an Indian man. I want it so bad.
Yeah, so I do see like the little differences, and I think I can tell I do the same.
Yeah.
I
feel like when I've seen you with the Asian communities, you're more muted, and which is why I think early on in our friendship, because we were also new friends, and if we'd go to parties where it was more Eastern, and you'd be very like toned down, I thought you were having a bad time, or like you were just like not feeling it. And I remember asking you as well, like a couple of times, if you're feeling okay, and then I realized it's just like how you are with certain groups.
I think I can see that, but then I think that also has like an additional factor of like me being unfamiliar with that with friends. But like if you put me in like with the Taiwanese, like my group of Taiwanese friends in Taiwan when I go visit them, and I'm very close with them, I think I will act more like how you act with your Indian friends. And like the jokes I make and the faces I make, the expressions are a lot different. I think I do act differently or behave differently.
When you were growing up in South Africa and you'd go to Taiwan for holidays or summer vacation and stuff, did you feel the difference even growing up, or was it when you only moved?
I think when I only moved, then I felt like so obviously when I first moved, I think I felt like culture shock, which is funny to say because I am Taiwanese and I'm moving into a Taiwanese community, but I felt a culture shock within my own culture, which is
Ironic,
strange,
yeah.
right? Yeah, it was very ironic, and I think I had to unlearn and learn a lot of mannerisms and culture appropriate behaviors that I now know, right? But I think that was very difficult for me. The first year, I felt very out of place, like I didn't belong, and that people didn't understand me.
Yeah.
So when I said something and people were like, oh, why would Barry say that? You know, like I felt like no one understood me.
Oh, that's tough.
It was really tough. I think the first year was especially tough, especially because like the people around me weren't the same as me. There aren't a lot of people who were raised abroad and then moved to Taiwan to study.
Yeah.
I ultimately did end up making a group of friends like that, and they became like my closest friends.
Yeah.
So that helps, but that was like only much later on, like third, fourth year of university. So the first 2 years I was kind of like on my own, and so I was trying to like navigate how or what it means to be a true Taiwanese. So I would do a lot of observing, and so to your point, muted.
Yeah.
Because I was like observing what people were doing, what's
Right.
appropriate to say and what's not.
Was there some aspect of that you were like, I'm not going to change? There were some things that you mentioned that you were like, okay, to fit in,
Right.
if I'm going to build a community here,
Right.
this is what I have to do. It is what it is when
Yeah.
in Rome, sort of.
Yeah.
But was there a thing that you were like, I'm not going to do this?
Yeah, I think like one of the things I just could not get myself to do is how the gender roles are a little bit more
Defined.
defined in Taiwan, where women are supposed to be a certain way, you know, like beauty standards especially. I think that's a very big example, and I think everybody can relate to. So in Asia, beauty standards are a lot different to Western culture, right? I think in Asia, the beauty standard is more like fair skin, perfect porcelain skin, you know, and that's where whole K-beauty comes from. And it's great having all of that, but I think they're less receptive or accepting of people of a different skin tone.
Yeah.
They don't view that as beauty then. And so I think like I didn't like that at all. I think that changed my confidence a lot, and I felt very confident going to Taiwan, right? Like having been born and raised in South Africa, like the Western world, you are accepted for who you are. And so I think I was just pretty confident about who I was, and until I moved to Taiwan, and I felt very not confident because of my skin tone, and people were forever reminding me that, you know, I need to cover up, or I need to put on sunblock, I need to do this and that to stay fair skinned. And I just remember that I think had a negative effect or negative impact on my mental state and my confidence level. So I think in terms of that, I probably would not like agree with ever, and would not want anyone to go through that. So yeah, I think like I appreciate, and this is not to talk badly about the Eastern culture, right? But I think it would be nice to see a improvement, or not even improvement. I would like to see
an embracing
of different sizes, different colors, variations, you know, different colors to what beauty can be. Yeah
Similar to India. In India, ironically, we live so close to the equator, but if you're dark, you're considered ugly. And you know, back in the day when these matrimonial ads would be put up in newspapers, it was always like seeking a fair bride. Like that was the constant, regardless of what else follows, seeking a fair bride. And then after they became a little woke, it started becoming seeking a wheatish complexion bride. Wheatish complexion.
That term is actually also used in Taiwan.
Wheatish complexion. They think it's like it's basically a nice way of saying fair.
No, but in Taiwan it's the opposite. Like my skin is wheatish.
Oh, because they don't want to say dark.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's the opposite. But they use the same term, like wheat.
Basically be fair. Correct. Is what the undertone is. Yeah. I was thinking, like when I moved here, I was thinking about one thing that really stood out when I moved here is I didn't have to worry about how I presented myself. Like I could wear whatever.
Yes, I remember you
in
saying
any
that.
environment, and I felt comfortable. I don't know what it is about it. I think people are just not in my business about it.
I think people here are very accepting.
Yeah, just do. And we've also lived, to be fair, in big cities in the US. We haven't really lived in like really small towns where I don't know how this is perceived. But we were in New York and now we're in San Francisco. So it's like very really big cities where there's so many different kinds of people. But like that's when I was like, oh, I'm in America. Like that was my feeling. You know, when I realized I'm not thinking about what I'm wearing, I was like, okay, now I feel like I'm in America. Like that was my feeling. But I don't know how much of that is Indian, you know, and how much of that is identity versus just being around people
Right.
who are narrow-minded. And so I was thinking, and I still don't have the answer to this. What is it to be Indian? Is sure that there are festivals, there's the language, there's culture, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not religious.
Yeah.
So the festivals and all the festivals are related to God.
Right.
They don't mean anything to me.
Yeah.
I like the food. But I like a good biryani. But I'm okay if I like don't eat it for some time, you know. I don't feel like if I have to eat bread all the time, I'll be very sad because you know how I feel about bread. But I don't know if that's my core. Like if I was doing a potluck, I wouldn't be like, oh, I'm gonna make Indian food. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. Maybe it's like things like, for example, I think of my Taiwanese side especially when we celebrate Chinese New Year, for example, and I'm home away from home. Right?
Yeah.
Like, it just doesn't feel the same. I think like that's what makes me Taiwanese. Like
The community.
And the celebrations and festivities that are tied to your culture. I think that's what makes me Taiwanese. Yeah. I guess like food to a certain extent, but to your point, like I don't, crave it every day. I don't have to have it every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like because we also moved here as adults, we didn't grow up here. I went on a date with this guy who, obviously, who was also American Indian, like different guy.
It's so funny. People think we date so much.
But we have many learnings from the same date. So it feels like we talk about it a lot, but literally I can count on two hands how many dates I've gone on. But
okay, maybe not two hands.
Okay, on my toes. But this guy was talking about, he grew up here. Okay. He was born and raised here. And he talked about how when he would go to school and his food smelled Indian or like curry smelled, he'd be made fun of. And like they lived in, the place that they lived in, it didn't have very good ventilation when they were growing up. And so sometimes the food or the smell of spices would sort of stick to his like hair, stuff like that, that happens.
Yeah.
And he was bullied for it. So stuff like that I haven't experienced. So I don't have to reconcile my two identities. I think, so that's the thing about food, right? I've not been shamed for liking the food that I like. In fact, now everybody loves Indian food, like most of the circles that I'm in. And so I didn't have to reconcile that. But maybe if I grew up here, that would be a thing that I would have to reconcile.
You know what you just got me thinking of is like how it's so interesting because India is only filled with Indians.
Yes.
No. What I mean by that is, and like Taiwan is only filled with Taiwanese. What I mean by that is United States has all these different cultures.
Yeah.
And so I think naturally, because in one community or one area, for example, like San Francisco, you have all these different cultures. People are naturally accepting because you were born into that, right? You were born into seeing people of color. You were born into seeing different cultures being celebrated throughout the year.
Yeah.
Whereas in India, in Taiwan, you don't see that.
Yeah. And it's such a, when there are visitors in India who are of different races, people will not stop staring them down.
Exactly.
And because it's such a novel experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think like because of that, they just haven't learned to be accepting of something different or something they don't quite, or they aren't familiar with.
Yeah. Yeah. So the stuff about food, right? Like I didn't have to be like, oh, I'm not going to eat my food because it's not accepted in the world that I'm in right now. Right. I never had to do all that. So I think that's why my identity crisis is not very high.
Right.
I feel like growing up here would have been a different thing.
For sure. I mean, like I had that where when I brought sushi, but sushi in the sense like kind of like what you guys call California rolls in the States, like just hand rolls or like things like that. People would make fun of me and the seaweed.
In South Africa?
Yeah. When I was in primary school, they were like, ew, what is that? What is that black thing? And I would feel like ashamed, because as a kid, you don't know any better. But everybody eats sushi here.
Yeah.
And that's why I see like the differences when like you're not used to that because you're not exposed to it. That makes you think it's different. And when you think it's different, you react a certain way, right? And I think like that was what it was like growing up in South Africa. There weren't a lot of Asians, and so they weren't exposed to Asian food, and so as a result, they thought it was different. and maybe gross because it was different.
Yeah.
Yeah. But now, like here in the States, everybody knows it. So it's not like a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the thing. Like, I've not been made to feel bad about a part of me that I feel like I had to change or change my identity. And so I think that's why I'm like, I don't know how I identify.
Maybe in a few years when we circle back and you've been here long enough, right? Maybe you feel like you've made a home out of here. Maybe that's when you'll start to feel like a part of you is American. Maybe.
Yeah. Even with India, right? Where I am from in India, it's this really small town called Coorg, and we have our own language. We have our clothing is different. Our traditional attire is different. Our festivals are different. Like last week, we celebrated a festival called Kailpod, which is where we celebrate our armor and our guns, because like hunting season traditionally has ended, and so you celebrate that. I'm like, in America, if I talk to someone about celebrating guns, I would be immediately
Especially
pigeonholed.
in California.
Yeah, I would be immediately pigeonholed, and so I don't like talk about that.
Right.
But I don't know if it's like affecting my identity. I think that's my struggle. I don't know what I identify as.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's the term like self-identity is quite nuanced, right? Like what you stand for, I think, is a good way to describe it. And I think your culture is just a part of your identity, right? Like it's not, I don't think it completes you as a person.
Yeah. So, you know, you mentioned when you were in Taiwan, you had to be a certain way to fit in, and you had to sort of nest and be a certain way. When you moved to the US, did you have to unlearn some of that? And did you find that hard?
No, I didn't think I found it hard. I feel like, and I don't like saying this term, and I don't know if it's the right term to use, but I felt like a little bit of me had to be concealed when I was in Taiwan. And so when I came here, knowing what this community is like, where it's more accepting of different cultures and different identities, I did not have to conceal. And so it almost felt like weight off my shoulders in a sense. And so instead of like unlearning some of the things, I kind of just felt like, oh wow, I can be like
your authentic self.
Exactly. And so I felt like I was a lot like myself.
Yeah.
And a lot, it wasn't to say I was unhappy in Taiwan. I think I just feel like I don't have to be mindful of every move and behavior. I mean, like in Taiwan, I had really good friends that allowed me or enabled me to be myself, and I'm very grateful for them.
Yeah.
But there were certain things that I had to be mindful about when I was meeting new people or starting in a new workplace, for example, or moving to like a new school for a master's. There were certain things that I had to tell myself, okay, don't say certain things, don't act a certain way.
Yeah.
To enable myself to fit in.
I went to undergrad. I did my undergrad in India, and I went to a college. My college was in a college town, sort of like. And so it was sort of moving from Bangalore, which is a big city, to moving to a really small college town was really weird and very jarring, because the things that are celebrated as Indian, I feel like my school took to a new level, and I didn't reconcile with that. For instance, in Eastern culture, you really revere your elders, right? Like all communities are formed based on how much you care for and respect your elders, and it's very much a thing, right? In any family, they typically are the most revered, and they get the first say, and they're the ultimate decision makers almost, right? And that's celebrated, and I get why that's valuable in a community, and that helps because you have someone who's older who can sort of guide you, and and I think that's when I think of like Indianness, I think a huge part of it is like community and spearheaded by like either a media or a leader, exactly. But then when I went to undergrad, it was very much like the professors were like, oh, you will respect me because I am elder to you. But they weren't doing anything to warrant the respect, you know? And so I found that very jarring. And there was no like dissent. You couldn't say like you disagreed with something that they were doing or how they were behaving. Right. And so when I moved here and when we went to Cornell, and you could like the professors were almost like they loved it when you dissented or you like disagreed with them or you had a point of view. That was so wild to me.
Yeah. I think I agree. I think I agree. I think I felt the same when I was in Taiwan. So I think that comes from like Eastern culture, like that respect for elders. I think it's just like ingrained.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like you can't say anything because they're older.
exactly. But they have more like life experience.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean anything. You've just been an annoying
Right.
person for longer in life sometimes.
Yeah. Like I can see the value of it for people who have good or who have good leadership skills, should I say.
Say more.
Like if there are people who like are elders and like you said, they're just trying to gain your respect because they're older than you, not because they have the leadership skills to make you respect them, or have any sort of skills to make you respect them. Yeah, what I'm trying to say is that like I can see that back in the day, right? When they were good leaders, they wanted you naturally respected them. And so like taking a step back and observing it objectively, you would be like, oh, okay, that guy has more wisdom and he has more authority because he is older, or it seems like he's older and has just more experience in life.
Yeah.
But people respected him because of his wisdoms that he had to pass down, right? But then I think back in the day, typically it's people who are older that have more wisdom. It just became a natural progression where like I guess people were just like, oh, okay, he's older, and so he would have more wisdom, but being older does not equate to having more wisdom.
Yeah. And then the flip side is I feel like because we come from such strong communities, and pros and cons, but because that's the thing, I feel like I definitely feel like I have a more support system that's more structured as opposed to some of my American friends that I have here. I feel like they're very much on their own. Right?
I agree.
So I feel like if something bad were to happen, like God forbid, like I get laid off and like my colleague who's American gets laid off, I feel like the way I'd be supported is very different. And it'll be more nurturing and more supportive than what they have. So flip side, you have to put up with people who are annoying in general, but you will be more supported generally as well.
I think I agree. Like I think, and that may come from, I think in Western culture, people are more encouraging of you being independent at a very young age. Like when you reach 18,
you just have to leave.
You're like on your own, basically. And I think that's more prominent in Western culture, right? And in Eastern culture, it's like you're 18, you're still a baby.
I know.
We'll take care of you. You know, like we'll see you through like college and all of that. And I think like because of that, since to your point of community, I agree that has built if something goes wrong, you'll have people to
fall back on.
Whereas the independent side of like Western community maybe makes it a little harder to feel like you have people to fall back on.
Yeah. And another thing that I was growing up that I thought was Indian was how conservatively you dress, right? And that's almost celebrated. But then growing up in a big city, like that wasn't really a thing.
Yeah.
Right? I didn't like India is conservative, so even now when I go back and I have to like pack to go back to India, I think about I don't put the skimpy clothes. Like I have to think about what I'm gonna wear. But even then, growing up in a city like Bangalore, like I could wear shorts and short shorts even, and it would be fine.
Yeah.
But then when I went to undergrad, like I almost started dressing differently because there were so many different kinds of people, and I didn't want to like be the focus of attention, you know. I didn't want people talking about me, so I was like, okay, what's the best way to do it? It's just like to dress like most people.
Yeah.
So that's also like something that you have to go through, the clothing, for instance, and how much you cover up.
Yeah.
But then again, how much of it is Indian? Like, is it Indian to be conservatively dressed? What about it is? It's sure, like people did it long time back.
Yeah.
But doesn't mean you agree with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and it was a very patriarchal society. So women are expected to be a certain way.
Yeah.
So one of my friends that is, he's Indian, but he's basically white. is how I would describe him. But he was born in India, but he moved west pretty early on in life, and so now he has some like friends who moved here to America like me, like very late in life, and so he is like shocked that when they go back to India, they dress very conservatively because he goes like clubbing with these people. So he's like shocked that they do that. And I'm shocked that he's shocked because I'm like, yeah, it's when in Rome, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to call attention to yourself. You don't want to like ruffle too many feathers. You just do what you can to appease everybody.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how much of that is Indian versus you just grew up in a conservative society and that's what you do.
I think it's not the act itself that is Indian, but the thinking behind why you act the way you do. Like being conservative is maybe some form of showing respect to some degree.
Yeah.
And I think that is what makes you Indian, because you guys emphasize the need to have respect for maybe the opposite gender or maybe those who are older than you, etc. And I think I feel the same about Taiwan. I was just thinking about like what makes me Taiwanese, and when I think about it, I think about like the festivities that we celebrate. So the big one, as I mentioned earlier, was like, for example, Lunar New Year, right? I think what makes us Taiwanese is that sense of culture and sense of community during Lunar New Year, where friends and family gather and sit around a table to celebrate the year and prosperity, and or be grateful for all the things that you've had and wishes for the next year. I think that is what makes up the culture. Yeah.
I think the other thing about dressing moderately or conservatively is also the kind of clothing you wear. Like India is so colorful, right? And I feel like since I've moved here, I've definitely stopped wearing less color.
I'm sorry if I was a bad influence.
I was looking at my wardrobe yesterday and I was like, I definitely have less color than I ever would. And I have very colorful clothes, but I just don't wear them often. Yeah.
But you can.
I know. I don't feel like, I feel like now it's just like I need a staple wardrobe, like what goes with like a capsule wardrobe. I'm trying to build a capsule wardrobe.
Yeah.
And like big colors don't go with everything. So,
I think they can.
So now I'm just like, I'm renting. I just have limited storage space, like what goes with everything.
Yeah.
That's more my thing, as opposed to, hey, I want to feel like I want to represent.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you also don't wear like your saris, and
I don't know how to drape a sari. I guess I'm not very Indian like that.
yeah, or like exactly, or like I don't wear like cheap house, which is like very like Taiwanese, right? But I guess like also in this generation in Taiwan, not a lot of people do wear it anyway.
I'm just like, where am I going to wear it for me to bring it from India, steam 9 yards, learn to drape it, have someone do the pleats.
I actually really liked this one golfer. She is the girlfriend of a F1 driver.
Okay.
And so they had like this, I think one of their races, all like the girlfriends, or what do they call it? Wags. What are wags called?
Wives and girlfriends.
Yes, of these
sports people.
Yeah, sports people. I think it was during Lunar New Year, or like it was like an event in a Asian location or something like that, where she came and she was dressed very modernly, but it was like it had inspirations of like a qipao.
Yeah.
And I really like that a lot, because like it was almost as if she was trying to show that this is what it represents. But at the same time, you can do it so like classy and modern. And
it's like your spin on it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really nice, like you can still bring your part of identity and culture into your everyday. It's just how you integrate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anytime I get invited to Diwali parties here, I'm like, I have nothing to wear because it's so practical now the way I dress. It's more that. And sure, I'd like dressing up, in a lehenga, but it's too much to carry around.
Yeah.
And so then is a part of me dying? Is a part of my identity dying?
I think it's still, I don't think it's dying, because you're mindful of it, right? And like, I think you still would want to do it. It's not like you don't want to do it, or like wear a lehenga or a sari, right?
It's just practically not possible.
At work, I sometimes see people like
in saris,
not sari, but
like the kurtas.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was just like, that's so nice that you're living in America, but you're still dressing like part of your culture is still there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was really nice.
Yeah. I was in Nairobi for work recently, and I have not seen so much color in a workplace in a very long time.
Yeah.
Like African culture itself, like the
They do it
prints,
so well though.
and colors that I never thought would go, they make it work. It's
There's just
incredible.
something about their skin tone. Like they can wear whatever and it works.
I know, it looks so beautiful.
Yeah.
And I was telling them that like I feel like I've stopped like wearing color as much. And they were like, no, you must wear color.
Yeah. Got to be more mindful of that.
Yeah. To your point about how, a lot like in our generation now, we have the privilege, I guess, to do a spin on what we take away from different cultures. What in your spin, in your Barry spin, what do you take from Eastern? Like what of your identity is Eastern? What of your identity is Western?
I think majority of me is Western, but I like the whole emphasizing of what respect means in Asian communities. So respecting your elders, and what I think makes me Taiwanese and that I'm really proud to be Taiwanese is how going back to community and taking care of your elders. I think because Western community, as I was mentioning, by the time you're 18, you're pretty much on your own, right? I think there isn't so much a strong sense of needing to take care of your parents or coming back and giving back to them for all that they've provided for you for the past 18 years. Whereas in Taiwanese culture, there is a very strong sense of kids feeling like, oh, my parents did so much for me in the last 18 years or 24 years, enabling me to do college and masters and then the workforce.
2 masters.
So 26 years for me. But yeah, essentially like I feel this urge of wanting to give them a lot of what I can provide because they've worked so hard for me to get to where I am today. So like feeling like I want to go back to see them, spend time with them, and take care of them is, I think, a big part of what it means to be Taiwanese. There's a term in Mandarin. The term in Mandarin is called 孝顺. And I think in English, it's called filial piety. But I don't know if that is a term that people use, right? Essentially, it just means that the feeling of like, maybe I should look up the actual definition, but it's essentially just feeling like you want to like give back to your parents or like take care of them. And it's funny because that term in Mandarin is very commonly used in the Asian community or in Asian culture. And I think the reason it's commonly used is because that's part of the culture. Whereas in English, it's very hard to find a word that
describes
it because it's not.
There was no need for it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so like I think there are like certain parts of me that are Taiwanese, for example, like that. I feel very proud of, and I do want to continue because I think it's important to maintain that so that you can show gratitude for the things that you have. I don't think I would be where I am if it weren't for my parents, that sort of thing. So yeah, I think like that side, that would be like the top thing I would say would stick with me as part of my Taiwanese side. My Western side, I would like to preserve the whole encouragement to embrace different cultures and not even just cultures, just embracing of different people of different kinds, and being open-minded to something that's different from you. Yeah. How about you?
I think my Eastern identity would be very tied to the communal aspect, right? I love living in a community. I think that's also one of the things that when I moved here, I was like, okay, I need to find my people. I think not a lot of people go about life I didn't meet a lot of people who are like, okay, this is a goal. It'll happen when it happens, but that's important to me. So I think that comes from my Eastern side. Also the music. I feel like as I've gotten older, the music in India, and there's so many different dialects, like that has really resonated. And somewhere I enjoy celebrating that, the music and the food, all the rice.
That's all Rima needs. If you guys want to just like
the way to my heart,
bribe her,
just buy me
just buy her rice.
A sack of rice. I think when I think of what it is, when a mental picture, if I conjure up a mental picture of like celebrating my Indian side, right, or my Kodwa side, I think of the food, I think of the music, I think of the clothing, and and how practical yet beautiful it is. And I think that's the Indian side.
I think that's true. I feel like Indians are probably the one culture that celebrates the dress code, or like the way you guys dress the most. Like if you look across the world, right? I think if you go to different parts of the world, Indians are very proud to wear their saris and langas.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't think you see that as much in other cultures.
I feel like when I moved here in 22, or even like when I was in Bangalore, like consuming pop culture here, I feel like there's this celebration now of India, because like so many celebrities now, like Priyanka Chopra, Lily Singh, Hasan Minhaj, like basically like not, he's not Indian, but essentially like South Asian culture is suddenly like cool here, right? And I was talking to a friend who grew up here, and she was like, it wasn't always like this. Like she was made fun of if she wore a bindi to school and stuff like that. But I feel like there's some sort of like resurgence, or not even resurgence if it's happening for the first time. But it's like cool now, right?
I feel like that comes with the whole like, you know, the world becoming more progressive in embracing all these different cultures. And I think it's almost I think it was encouraged by globalization, right? Because people are able to move across the world nowadays and live in a new place.
Yeah.
And so especially like the US, where a lot of different people from different countries congregate, right?
Yeah.
Like you kind of like now deal with all these different people.
Yeah, it's such a melting pot.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that has kind of encouraged the progression of embracing different cultures.
Yeah. And I was thinking about that guy who got bullied for smelling like curry, right? And yes, that sucks. But I feel like if he had kids, they would not go through the same thing. And it keeps getting better with every generation.
Exactly.
So then they could be proud of their curry. In fact, people might want the curry, you know?
Exactly.
So that's good. And for my Western, what I would embrace from my Western identity, or what I would keep, I think is boundary setting, for lack of a better word. It's to live and let live. I think that's my motto in life currently, is to just let people do whatever they want to. And I think the people that you vibe with, they're the people that stay in your life. And so it's okay if you don't vibe with everybody. And I think that is, I don't know how much of it is Western, how much of it is growing up, right? It's hard to say which is the causation, which is the correlation.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's just that I'm able to just live life and not be encumbered by the almost the like burden of what an Indian woman should be. Like I get to define that. I can have the career that I want.
Yep.
Immigration laws willing. and I can have the life that I want, right? And not be bogged down by what it is to, it's not very Indian woman of you to do that.
Right.
I like that I don't have to be worried about that. And I guess I can do that because I can embrace that Western side.
Yeah. I mean, like we say all of this not because, you know, we want to let go of any part of us or any part of the culture that we know. I think in today's world, right, like I know a lot of Asians, East Asians that are here in the States that don't embrace their own culture. Like, and I would encourage them to, right? And I think like us talking about like being able to choose a certain part of us that we want to keep and not keep is not to say that, you know, we're letting go of our Indian culture or Taiwanese culture, right? It's more so just being able to balance what makes sense for us.
On the contrary, I would say I've become more Indian since leaving India. Because when I moved here, like I said, I'm from a very small part of India, right? And there's like, I think 150,000 people all over the world of Kodwas.
Very small.
Yeah. And so when I moved here, I was like, okay, I'm never going to get to celebrate the festivals or the food or the culture if I don't seek more Kodwas out. And when you grow up in India, or like when I'm around Korgis in India, I don't have to like seek out people to celebrate my festival with, right? In fact, my mother's telling me to be more involved. That's what's happening. But when I'm here, I need to seek it out, because if I don't, it'll never happen.
Yeah.
So I would say, to your point, instead of like letting go, I'm more holding on to it now, which is not a thing I was thought would happen, because growing up I didn't think that was a big part of what I valued.
Yeah.
But since I moved here, I was like, oh no, I need Kodwas around me.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's the opposite of what I felt.
Yeah. Yeah. Having said that, like I think, what do you think that if you were ever to have kids, how do you think you would raise them to ensure that they still keep a part of that Indian culture, especially if you have the kids in the States?
Yeah, I've thought about this a lot because every man on Bumble wants children.
First of all, Rima does not want children, not as right now, but I hope that's changed.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. But I think, yeah, I think about the language, and my Kodawa itself is not very good. In fact, I was telling my brother-in-law that it's gotten really bad, and he was like, it was never good to begin with. And I was like, I don't need this energy. But I still think in English, and I have to like convert it in my mind. And if I don't speak the language, it's really hard to keep at it.
Yeah.
So I feel like the language, I don't know if I can pass on. Unless I find a Kodawa husband who's very well versed in Kodawa.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't know how much of the language I can pass on. I would like to pass on the culture, like the history of our people,
Yeah.
and why we celebrate the things that we do, like why we celebrate arms, for instance, right?
Yeah.
And our relationship to wildlife and nature itself, like, and why we worship our ancestors. I would love to pass on that history, which I'm also learning more now than I ever have before. Again, like I said, I think I'm becoming more Kodawa than I was before. I think I'd want to pass on the history. And all the pop culture, like I want to watch Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum with my children. And
I feel like I've become pretty Indian.
You have, which is why I want an Indian man for you. I want your wedding in Delhi. Yeah, all the pop culture references, I want them to get, like, why Shah Rukh Khan is the way he is, or why he is as big as he is. The food, definitely the food.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is wild because I'm not even a foodie.
Yeah.
But I think it's really nice to celebrate that stuff with people.
For sure.
And I feel like I didn't have a lot of Indian friends in the last few years. Like, but now I feel like if I was to throw a Diwali party, for instance, I feel like I could call people.
I feel like you have a lot of Indian friends.
Now I feel like I'm
compared to when, like when you
when I was in Cornell, or like I would not like host people to celebrate a party of like my festival, for instance. But now I feel more comfortable doing it.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
So yeah, what about you? What would you pass on?
I think the language is important.
It's really nice that you can speak and write Mandarin.
You know, it's funny because like at work, people are always so shocked that I can speak Mandarin.
Because you're basically like a white person trapped in an Asian body.
No, because I speak so well in English. What do you mean? No, like some of the people that I work with, they've worked with me for so long. And sometimes when I'm talking to them one-on-one and I know they speak Mandarin and I can see that they're struggling to express something, I'll just say in Mandarin, you can say it in Mandarin. And they're like, you speak Mandarin? And it's so funny because I think, like, to your point, right, because I speak fluent English, they just naturally think that I don't speak Mandarin. And I think it's nice that my parents, I'm very grateful that my parents have instilled that in us as kids. I think it really does impact how much you understand the culture, because there are just certain words, like I was saying earlier, right? There are certain words tied to the culture that cannot be expressed in English, for example. And so I do think that is something I would like to pass down. I mean, I hated going to Chinese school when I was a kid, right? But I think that really helped me, because what's really beautiful and fun about the Taiwanese traditional characters is that each character actually stems from a picture of the actual
you've shown me like the word for house actually looks like a house,
or exactly, or like horse is like the most prime example. Like the character of horse, if you write it out and you kind of like zoom out, it kind of looks like a horse that's running. And it was so interesting to like when someone pointed that out to me, and I was just like, wow, that is what makes Taiwanese, right? There's just so much beauty in like culture in the way that it's represented, like whether it's through language or like characters and or food and festivities. So I think I do, like you said, all the things you mentioned, want to pass it down to my kids. I think it's important for them to understand where they came from, even though they weren't born from there. I think it's kind of sad when, you know, you get older and you get asked, so you're Taiwanese, but because I'm South African, right? So in South Africa they would be like, you're Taiwanese, so what is Taiwanese people like? And you don't know how to answer that. I think that is really kind of sad. So I would love my kids to be able to say, oh, well, and get excited. Oh, well, like this is what Taiwanese people represent, or this is what we do. I think that's really nice. So yeah, I do want to pass all those things down, the things that you mentioned. Yeah.
All the pop culture, the Taiwanese pop culture.
I don't know if I know any of that.
Who's the pianist that's really good?
Jay Chou. I told you about
All the karaoke songs.
all the karaoke songs. So Jay Chou is like a renowned artist, musician in Taiwan, and a lot of his works actually represent Taiwanese culture. And I think it's great that he did that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of my early exposure to Taiwanese music was through his works, and a lot of his songs are actually like talks about like the history of Taiwan, the wars and what the new Taiwanese culture has become. I think so. Yeah.
Was there have you seen a movie or heard a song or like read a book that really represented what it was like for you to have dual identity?
What? Oh my gosh.
Didi?
Yes. I remember like Rima and I went to go watch Didi in theaters, and I just felt like it was a very well made movie that I could so much relate to, because it was almost exactly a replica of like what I had to go through, right? Obviously not the silly things that the little boy went through, but
Puberty. Big puberty, very.
but yeah, like the struggles of what it means to be Taiwanese in Western culture, essentially. So like how the family was represented was exactly how like a Taiwanese family in a different or foreign country is like. And I think a lot of my friends also felt very much like they could relate to the movie for that reason.
Nice.
Yeah. How about you?
No.
The way she like took a deep breath. She's like, no, nothing comes to mind.
Yeah, I don't think anything comes to mind. So I like reading books where the setting almost is like what I'm going through in life. So for instance, if I'm visiting a country, I like reading about a story that is set in that country. And even if it's like a thriller or like historical fiction, I just like knowing about that world.
Yeah.
And it's nice if I'm going through the same thing,
Yeah.
right? Like one book I'm reading now is it's called Sourdough. It's about a woman in STEM who moves to San Francisco for work, and her life, like she's trying to like figure out how to have a life outside of work. Like that's the book. So it's like nice that I can relate to it. And so when I was moving to America, I read this book called Americana.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, it's about a woman who moves from Africa to America for school, and what was that like?
Yeah.
I didn't relate to anything in that book. So I was like, okay.
Yeah.
But no, I feel like Bend It Like Beckham had certain aspects of it, like how she like wears something underneath and then she covers up and then she goes on. I feel like that. I feel like all my girlfriends and me have done that at some point of time. And it's also like you tell your mother you're doing something, but actually you're doing something else. Yeah, that stuff like that. But I haven't seen anything about like a woman who moves west and how she forms a community or like something like that. I'm yet to see something like that.
Yeah. Maybe it'll come soon.
Maybe. I will say the thing about language though is that I didn't learn my language to how to write it because it wasn't in school. And I've learned other languages through friends. Like I grew up with people who spoke the language, their own mother tongue, and growing up in their houses as well, I picked some of that up.
Yeah.
And so that was nice. But I do regret not being able to speak to my grandparents more when they were around.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also my older relatives now, I feel like now they do understand that I'm more, they call me English medium, which I don't appreciate. But I think it's, the conversation is different when you're able to speak the language.
Sure.
I feel like it's stilted when you speak in English and they are talking in, say, Kodwa or Kannada.
Yeah.
But when you speak the language, you can see the difference in how they express themselves.
Sure.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So it's cool that you speak and read.
Yeah. I do definitely think there's
Value
a
to that.
difference. Yeah.
You must see it with like your siblings who don't speak very fluently and how they interact with relatives and how you do, right?
Yeah. I do see that difference. Although I feel like because my brother has now lived in Taiwan for a long time, I think that he has like caught on to a lot of the certain terms that you use, and that has brought him closer to our cousins.
Yeah.
So it's kind of nice to see.
This dude on a date, different dude.
He's actually not going on that many days.
Yeah, it's just yeah. And so he was like, "Do you speak fluent Kannada?" Like I'm from Bangalore and the language is Kannada. He's like, "Do you speak fluent Kannada?" And I was like, I want to say yes, but I feel like if you were to test me, it would not go down well.
What did he have to say to that?
I didn't know this was an inside thought. He speaks Kannada. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I never saw him again, so there's that. But yeah, I think this is going to be an ongoing journey, what identity means to us.
Yeah. One of the first dates I went on when I moved to the Bay, the guy was Taiwanese, but he doesn't speak fluent Mandarin, but he made a dedicated effort to, now that he's an adult and he really wants to be closer with his Taiwanese relatives.
Yeah.
So he's made a dedicated effort to actually learn the language.
That's so nice.
Yeah, and it was really nice to see. And so when we like met up, we went for like Taiwanese food, and then like when we were like chatting, I felt like he was just someone who really wanted to understand his roots, and I thought that was really nice to see, because he was born and raised here in the Bay.
Yeah.
So I think it was nice to see that he wanted to do that.
That's nice.
Yeah.
What would be your advice for someone who's, say, younger, who's navigating the same journey as you? What advice would you give them? Or what would you tell your younger self?
I think I would say, don't be afraid of embracing that side of you. It may feel kind of weird when you talk about it with people who don't understand it. And I think that a lot of people are put off because those around them don't understand it and they don't embrace it, right? So what I mean by that is like, they're like, oh, but you're American, so does it really matter? And I think it does. It does matter to understand your roots, right?
Yeah.
I would just really encourage you to, if you do want to understand your roots, like embrace it by speaking to more people who are from that culture, or going to communities. There are a lot of like Taiwanese communities in the Bay. Go to those events, make some friends there. And there are also a lot of like not only those communities, but also like Chinese school, what they call Chinese school here, but a lot of them are like Taiwanese based. And so I remember in South Africa, we had like Taiwanese school, but a lot of functions also happened at the Taiwanese school. And so we used to have like little fairs or little night markets. And I think a lot of people that weren't Taiwanese came to those because they wanted to learn about Taiwanese culture. And so I would definitely like encourage you, or those of you who are interested in understanding your roots and your culture, to go and find people who are like that. And also find people who are interested in, discovering that side of them.
Yeah.
People who are on the same journey, I think, can relate to you a lot better. So yeah, that's, I think, would be my suggestion. How about you?
I think I would say there are no rules of what your identity should be, regardless of how you identify. So you get to do your own spin, and so see what aspects of it you want to take along with you. And if you don't want to embrace something, that doesn't make you less of a certain identity.
For sure.
It just means you're building up your own, and that's totally fine. And I would say try to identify early on what's important to you and what's not.
Yeah.
Because the stuff that is important to you, you do have to make an effort to have in your life, whether it's the language, whether it's the community. And so know what's important to you and know that you have to put in work. And just because it doesn't come easy to you doesn't mean it's the wrong thing to do. It takes work because it is hard, like learning the language, like learning the food, learning the history. It is hard, but doesn't mean it's a bad thing. And yeah, celebrate it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Having said that, if you guys have any fun stories, or if you guys are going through the same, please feel free to write to us. We'd love to hear stories like that. Yeah, I think we'll wrap it up here for today. We'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.